Welcome to one of many Luard deck lists for the premium format post-Bro 2021. This is just my take on the build. There are different versions of this and you can kind of mix it around how you want. So already you can see that we're starting off with Quick Shield Starter. I mean, it's kind of the standard for most premium deck builds nowadays, and we're running Dragfall instead of any of the other options. So to start this deck list off, that's what we're going with, is 4 Dragfall Luard. The shoving things back into your deck is just perfect. It prevents you from decking out. You can run Dragheart G series if you want to run that one instead to prevent decking out even further. This one just makes it so you stride for free. So because you're running a Luard list, other than the Heal Guardians, that's the only grade 3 that you really want to ride into. So some of the other deck decisions will make a lot more sense as this video goes on. So that's your main ride target. Grade 2s, we'll start off with Morion Spear. This guy just makes columns. He also gets your grade 1 out of your soul so that you can help build up ritual. It draws you a card. If you discard any other card, you can discard a Quick Shield if you want to. It gets 5k. Regardless, you're going to get the draw. So this will filter your hand for the things that you don't like or the things that you want to see in your draw. After that, we have Liafail. This is the main ride target other than Morion Spear, but this is kind of like the top priority, the one that you want to see, because immediately on ride on Van or Rear Circle, you counterblast one, you search out any grade 1 that you want and you call it into rear. So this is kind of adding on to the toolbox effect that you get. After that, you have the main playmaker, which is Dagda. I mean, it just extends your combos, and on a MORFESSA turn, it just keeps the punches going, just keeps the attacks going. So very great card. After that, going into the grade 1s, you'll see a lot of 2-ofs in here just because the deck is as toolboxy as I'm kind of describing. So you have 2 Charon for your countercharge engines. If it's called from deck, you can Soul Blast 1 and countercharge 1. And Abyssal Owl for additional draw. If you're going second, this is always going to cost a Soul Blast unless you're striding. Other than that, if you go first, I mean, it costs a counterblast, which doesn't feel the best, but it's additional draw. So it's very nice. Also, it's a 5k grade 1, so it's searchable off the main, and if you ride it, it's a little hard for your opponent to damage deny you. After that, one of the main ride targets is Blue Spotted Dragon. I originally had this at 4, but as I kept testing on it, if you see it too often, its on placement skill is you check the top 3 for a Morion Spear or a Claret Sword, but since this is Luard list, you only find Morion Spear. Since it doesn't have a cost, it's a mandatory mill. So if you see this in late game, you run the risk of decking yourself out. But in terms of setting yourself up for first stride Ritual 10 MORFESSA turns, it's great. I don't run it at 2 just because if you damage deny 1, I mean, I feel like you have to at least see this card twice unless you're really filling up your graveyard on your own. Other than that, we get to the 4-ofs. So I actually run 4 grade 3 searchers. Branwyn is a good card to call to rear even if you aren't using it as a grade 3 searcher. So this is really good early game and late game. Early game, it helps you find your Luards, and late game, it gives itself 5k because you're already at Ritual 10, so it only needs I believe 3 grade 1s in your drop zone, so it becomes a 13k booster. So for MORFESSA turns, it's just added pressure.
How often do you G-assist?
Honestly, I don't G-assist too often, especially like having the 4 grade 3 searchers does help. Other than that, I mean, with adding on, I mean, your early Abyssal Owls, as well as if I ride into Morion Spear, I feel like I draw enough to where I'll see my Luards, if not through there, at least through my drive checks. But It's honestly not too often for, I mean, running only 4 copies of the grade 3 that you want to ride. It's less than you'd expect, really. And then I am running 4 Ezra's as my Sentinel. I don't run the draw PGs just to make it so that I don't risk decking myself out quicker, and Ezra's just being able to return directly to your hand. I mean, it's perfect. It's good. It is GB restricted, but it's not too hard. After that, the last grade 1 that we run is 4 copies of Skull Wish in a main. SP ones are crazy expensive, but it is once per turn. So I mean, you just rest a unit to call out sack fodder for your MORFESSA turns or any of your other abilities. It fetches out your Abyssal Owls so that you can kind of get that guaranteed draw while also soul blasting that grade 1 that's stuck in your soul. It also searches out the first grade 0 that I'm gonna go over, which is Vikryu. So when it's sacrificed due to the effect of one of your cards, you can shove this into soul and you countercharge 1. So it's another piece of countercharging in the deck. So the fact that it's searchable off of Nemain it just adds on to that toolbox feel. So now on to the trigger lineup. I do run the Cray Elemental over trigger. I mean, it's just having an over trigger is just better than having Ultima, because you're not really going to go into Ultima, really. And right now I'm running the Cray Elemental one. I might try a Martinoa, but I mean, with the amount of milling that you're going to do, there is kind of like a higher chance that you mill it off your blue Espada Dragon, so it's not the best. And the fact that you have pretty big columns with the additional effect giving one of your other columns 100 million is just that much better. Deck out game, yes.
Yes.
And then this is actually a tech spot that I got off of watching the Bro tournaments. I'm gonna basically try this out. It is a stand trigger called Crafting? I don't know how to pronounce that. GB1 Ritual 3, when it's sacrificed, you check the top 2 cards of your deck and you can add 1 into hand, put the other 1 into your drop. So if it's still main phase and you sacrifice this, you can search for your Dagdas, your Morion Spears, whatever it is, or, you know, if you need something to hit the drop for your Ritual 10, I mean, this just adds on to that. Plus, it's another stand, so you have a higher chance of hitting stands for your Dagda. And then I'm running 2 into soul crits just for the additional draw, and it's a 10k crit. Having G-era triggers kind of hurts once you check those defensively, so having as many of these as you can really counts. And then I'm running 4 Belial Owl. I've seen some lists that run it at 2, maybe at 3, but the effect of it going back into deck and the draw that you get off of it is just too valuable, in my opinion. And then 4 Cursed Eye Ravens goes back to deck. You can find sack fodder and anything that you don't want out of your deck, you can just put it at the bottom, make sure that you still have it for any Dagda searches, anything like that. So it's perfect. And then 4 Heal Guardians, again, 10k triggers. The only downside is that if you run this, you can't really rely on the G assist to hit your Luards in case you don't see them. But against certain matchups like early rushes, anything like that, I mean, it kind of puts it to the halt. Yeah, Ezel sometimes. So that's it for the main deck. Now on to the G zone. The main kill stride is going to be Drag Principal MORFESSA. Hopefully the purpose of this deck is to kind of turbo your way into Ritual 10 by the time you go into this. It's Rit 10, it gives your entire front row 15k, 2 crit, and if they want to guard any of those attacks, they have to drop at least 2 cards from your hand to guard. So even if you perfect guard, that's 3 cards out of their hand. After that, you have these 3 slots. They can literally be whatever you want because you're always going to be going into your MORFESSA. You should be always going into your MORFESSA. So these three can kind of be anything. The 3 slots that I have, I mean, I just have Sabriz. Sabriz is kind of irrelevant with the rule changes. I have Ogma for any like Pale Moon matchups, or if my opponent just has like a clear board, I can just completely trash their hand. And then I also have Drag Strider Luard. If I have no counterblasts, no soul blasts, and I have Rich 7, I mean, I can kind of dump any deck cards in my hand and refill them up that way. Now, for the rest of it, I run 2 Dragabyss Luard. I mainly just run this in case you run out of counterblasts, or if you don't feel like you can hit Rit 10 on your Drag Principal turn. That's mainly just for setup, so that by the next stride you can do that, or with its Soul Blast 1 and fetch, I mean, you can fetch out the Charons or any other countercharge engines that you need. After that, I run Phantom Blaster, Dragon Diablo for, I mean, Geese matchups. I've never faced up against a Geese, but in any case that your opponent doesn't have a board, the pressure is just too nice.
Geese around the corner.
Exactly. You never know when a Geese player is just going to jump you. After that, we have G-Guards. So I have Dragriser Bronak. Dragriser Bronak, let's say you're going first for whatever reason, and you G-Guard first. This just looks at the top 5, takes any grade 1s, and places them on the Guardian Circle. So if you're not at least by Ritual 4, that pretty much helps.
How often do you whiff?
Honestly, not that often. The deck runs about 16 grade 1s or so, so it's pretty hard to whiff. I mean, the only like feels bad that you have is like PGs if you place down an Ezra's, because that has to be from hand. I run 1 Dismal to protect your Dagda.
Nice.
After that, you have the Plotmaker Dragon. I mean, just added on free 10k shield is nice. And Dark Veil, the longer the game goes on, the better this gets. Soul Blast 1, it gets 5k shield for every 2 grade 1s in your drop, so it's nice. And then I do run the Gilito or the Flip G-Guard. You have a lot of grade 1s. You can move them from rear, draw a card, and then another Plotmaker just for the flip fodder. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire deck. Thanks for watching.